the question now comes to the fact that how do we, Harjeet, you are into micro banking as a strategic business. I was interviewing there in Subke, but the relationship with Basics per se goes back, I think, 8-9 years. When you converted or transformed from Ratnakar to RBL and chose micro banking as a very important business line, and today you manage very significant business. How do you see the operating models change in the light of COVID and the inevitability of the fact that technology is already invading the lives of people, to some extent microfinance customers also? Do you see a change, and what do you see the change? What kind of a change?
Yeah, so as you rightly said, Sasi, I think this is a business which we bet on fairly early, and part of the credit and share goes to Mr. Vijay Mahajan for guiding us the initial years towards this. Now, this business, as we all know, has been built on very traditional way of doing it, very process-oriented, meeting customers face-to-face, educating them, and therefore handholding them through the entire process. But the reality of the situation today is that I think given the pandemic and we kind of all got hurt when it started, the moment you withdrew from the customer and therefore you were in no position to travel and visit the customers, everything came to a standstill. You couldn't collect, you couldn't, funding to new customers stopped, and therefore that kind of, I think, has shaken up the entire industry, and everybody is now thinking in terms of how do you kind of change this to ensure that one is able to do most of this stuff digitally as well. So till now, I think digitization was to enable your frontline and interaction with customers, etc. But that physical touch was still required. And I think this challenged us to see how do we do it. I know of a lot of organizations, including a couple of our partners and us, who in this time quickly morphed into the fact that loan officers could now get in touch with their customers through their mobile phones with all data being provided to them, their ability to being able to capture what the customer is saying or wanting, quickly appointing center leaders to do the task on their own in terms of getting all the members together, getting the cash collected, and therefore giving it to the branches. Some of us have even tried sending links to customers to say, okay, if you want to pay digitally, you can. Now the percentage uptick is small, but I think in a market like this, small steps like these, as you keep nudging, is what is going to change, and over a period of time you will see that the adoption keeps becoming bigger and bigger. But we need to move away from this necessity that we have to sit across in a room and interact with people. Without that, we won't be able to do much. We are now looking at seeing as to how should you be in a position to disburse to a client at a touch of a button. I mean, why should it take 3 to 4 days today through the entire process? How do you carry out your CGTs and GRTs, etc., online or through mobile phone? So those are some of the stuff I think which we are working on, and we will have to find a solution. It's not a question. I don't think we have a choice now. We're also trying to see how do we leverage data. I mean, this industry works with very simplistic models. First loan cycle, X amount of loan, second loan cycle, Y, and it slowly moves up, and therefore total loan allowed minus outstanding is what you gave. I think that needs to change. There is enough data which is there, which tells us in terms of we can now get specific to a customer in terms of taking decisions. And what it also does is that if you have those rule engines running behind, then it makes things almost immediate in terms of decisioning. So those are some of this other stuff which we are doing. We're trying to encourage customers to use their bank accounts so that they can make repayments from there, and also start using it rather than keeping cash at home and trying to worry about stuff. So yeah, I think this change has to happen, will happen, and the faster institutions like ours who are in this microbanking space adopt it, the better it is.
So that leads to the question where these developments that we see of late, Sanjay, maybe you can help understand, Harjeet talked about leveraging data, allowing customers to go through digital payment journeys. How do you think these developments that we've seen of late, the account aggregator models, the UPI auto mandates, or I mean, I'm more excited about OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network, that apparently is going to open up a plethora of opportunities. So how do you think this will help, let's say an RBL bank, for example, to deepen in the financial inclusion space?
So the account aggregator and OCEN are essentially completing the picture on financial inclusion. When we talked about India Stack, I spoke about a whole bunch of components which are infrastructure for financial inclusion. And the account aggregator, from concept was about 4 years ago, and I think it's just starting to go live now. And OCEN, interestingly, doesn't need too much regulatory handholding, but as long as the industry agrees on a common set of standards, you can actually put that API together and actually have people interconnect right away. And so together, these two pieces, I think, are now starting to go live. And now we're coming to a point where we can start to see this interaction between the entire financial ecosystem get together to actually take lending down to that last customer who's so far been out of this formal system. And this will happen through lenders who, and will mostly be banks, but of course others as well, who will put together APIs that will allow people who are directly in touch with the customer, perhaps like Sabke directly is, or there might be other folks who then can try and get the right product to the right customer, so that once you look at the customer, you understand their journey, you understand what is the best product suited for their need, and then you should be able to sort of get back and try and get it from the entity which has that product, and then make sure it gets used by that customer, and then the customer engagement actually moves a lot to the front end. And so what this does is it ensures wider reach for a bank like RBL, perhaps even smaller ticket loans, which then can go out to much wider number of customers. And at the same time, it ensures that this entity which is in touch with the customer, which probably has different data about that customer, can then use that and help the bank understand that customer more, and perhaps assist in collection and everything else. So overall, I see that this is really the ecosystem coming together to take the right product to the right customer. And all of this enablement will happen through data like the AA, but otherwise also primarily because this lending service provider layer that is at the front has a better understanding of this customer and the financial products, and then can probably provide that connectivity.